Welcome to this final session of the Virtual Library Instruction Tennessee Conference. Library Instruction Tennessee provides space for teaching librarians to network, collaborate, and discuss trends, issues, and innovations in library instruction and information literacy. We would like to thank Citadel Library for providing Zoom access for our conference. This meeting is being recorded. By continuing to attend this session, you are consenting to being part of the recording. These recordings with captions will be posted on the LIT website after the conference. We ask all attendees to abide by our code of conduct, which may be found on the About Us page of the LIT website. If you'd like to report an issue, please email us at libraryinstructiontn@gmail.com. We have disabled your microphones, so if you have questions for the speakers during this session, please place them in the chat box and the speaker will address them, or we will include them in our Q&A period at the end. If you have technical issues, please, again, email libraryinstructiontn@gmail.com. A survey will be emailed to you after the conference concludes. Please give us feedback as we will use that to improve your experience. Now, this session is titled Community-Centered Conversations, Improving Library Outreach to Faculty. And our presenter today is Morgan Pruitt from Central Carolina Community College. Thank you for being here, and let's get lit.
Thank you. So my name is Morgan, and I'm the Outreach and Assessment Librarian at Central Carolina Community College, which is located in North Carolina. And I am in the Lillington campus, which is in Harnett County, North Carolina, but we also have two other campuses. One is in Pittsburgh, North Carolina, and one is in Sanford, North Carolina. I want to just basically say, if you have questions or comments, feel free to drop them in the chat. This is like more discussion, not so much lecture. So it's not really something where you have to sit and wait. Feel free, by all means, to drop your ideas into the chat. I will go ahead and say that when I first started planning this, I wasn't really thinking very much about the article I'm about to share with you right now. I had read it before, but I hadn't really thought much about it. But I'm going to share with you this article that I have read recently, and I kept thinking, this reminds me of that community-centered kind of mindset that we were thinking about. And it's from The Atlantic, and it's about how the main sort of factor in love in romantic relationships is kindness. And so they talk about this study where someone will participate in a bid. So the bid is like, hey, I really like watching birds. Look at that cardinal outside. And the couple or the partner in that couple will either turn away or turn toward. If they turn away, they're like, okay, yeah, whatever. It's just a bird. Like, let's move on. But if they turn toward, then they're saying, oh, that's really cool. That's really awesome. Can you tell me about that? And what that does is it fosters a stronger relationship between the couple, and they're more likely to make to have a longer, more satisfying relationship. And that's not to say that your work relationships will be a lot like your romantic relationships, but your work relationships will often have those same bidding moments where you will have faculty members bid for your attention and you will bid for theirs. And it's about learning to turn towards instead of turning away from. And so that was sort of that idea of the community-centered conversation, like where can we turn towards our bids and where can we sort of reach out to people to sort of influence one another in a way that is kind. And so I want to start by saying that the learning outcomes that we really started with were creating a stronger sense of community and collaboration between faculty and the library, identifying faculty's expertise and interests, and then understanding how the library's collection in particular can support faculty in their instruction. And so this will be all about the mistakes we made, the things that we did well, so on and so forth. The main thing I really want to emphasize when it comes to thinking about this kind of dialogue about library outreach to faculty is that it not only improves the library's instruction that we deliver to the students, but it also improves the faculty's instruction that they deliver to the students about the library and what we do. and they have a better picture of who we are and what we do. And I think that increases the satisfaction that we have with one another in our work relationships. So I want to give you some context. As I said, Central Carolina Community College is in North Carolina. There are 3 main campuses, but there are multiple smaller sites. And these locations do have what we would consider areas where a librarian could go and meet with the students. That has been a bit of a challenge. I'll get to that in just a minute. But that is really sort of the perspective. There is a lot of space to cover across 3 counties. And so it's really hard sometimes to ensure that the faculty are all getting the sort of same opportunities. Like, what's the equity concern there if we are hosting it at one site versus at another? So this all happened in spring 2022. So it's very, very fresh. There were 6 planned workshops and then 2 additional on-the-fly workshops. And so a total of 8. I will say that in the end, one of the on-the-fly workshops is included here because the last 6th planned workshop did not happen. So we're obviously starting this project while we're still in the pandemic. And then there were some staffing issues. So we didn't have quite as many librarians as we could have had to spread across all of the campuses. Honestly, if we had more librarians, it might look different. So this is sort of what we have come up with in the current context that we are at. So some of the challenges and then some of the solutions that we came up with. So multiple sites. Instead of delivering programs physically, we were going to deliver them virtually. So all virtual programs and workshops for the faculty. Limited faculty time. So not only we recorded presentations, but we also provided a couple of unique opportunities to see what worked. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And then communication. So one of the things that is always challenging about outreach to faculty is, like, do they get the message that we want them to come to the library's workshops? Did they read my email? Did they get that thing that I sent through MailChimp? And so instead of using MailChimp, which is admittedly easier, I email the faculty directly, especially if I thought they would be interested in it. And I also would go to their offices and I would say, hey, you're never going to believe about this program that we have. Would you like to come? And so that was sort of that bid that I was making. Like, I'm getting to know you, you're getting to know me. Do you want to know more about something that I can share with you? It was hard because this is actually my first year as the outreach librarian here. So not only am I trying to get people to come and see the program and come learn of what we offer, but also trying to get people to be like, oh, that's the librarian. That's not just some random person walking around inviting me places. Okay, so the workshops that we offered. This is the list of workshops that we offered. You can see here that we had a welcome week. We did non-traditional resource from the library. I'm going to focus on the lunch and learns and the making the library collection work for you. So the framework for the workshops, that was the big thing that I really tried to set out in order to facilitate a community experience. So instead of making it like a lecture, I really said, okay, y'all are the experts in your field. I am the librarian. I know the library resources. I'm not going to tell you how to use your resources. I'm just going to help you find what you need. And really trying to empower them to feel like the discussions that we were having were things that they could contribute to. It wasn't just like they were sitting being talked at. They were contributing to. It was a conversation. And then it was really a promotion of library resources. They might say, well, I'm thinking about doing this project. And I would say, oh, I think that this resource might really help you. What do you think? And they might say, no, I don't think so. And say, okay, can you tell me a little bit more about your project? And then getting a little bit closer and a little bit closer. And then an opportunity for a lot of feedback. Did you enjoy this? Did you like this? What more do you want to see? And so allowing them to really dictate what happens next, and what kind of resources we would discuss or talk about. So I really wanted them to be in charge. Like there's a format and a platform we're using to discuss these ideas, and I've got an idea and a plan. But if they wanted to take it in one direction, then we might go in that direction. As long as, it doesn't get too chaotic, then that's okay. I will say that as a former instructor, that is how I taught in my classroom. And then now as someone who teaches some one-shot instructions, I do tend to be a little bit more open with we can cover a lot of stuff. And if, you're thinking about this, let's go this way. That may not work for everybody. Some folks may prefer to have a more structured environment. And that's totally up to what makes sense for you and for your faculty. So the lunch and learns, we did Wikipedia in the classroom. Wikipedia as a point of need for students. That was really what we were thinking about when we designed this workshop. And we thought, if students are going to use Wikipedia in the classroom, then how can we help faculty to recognize how to evaluate Wikipedia, but also how to guide students in using Wikipedia if that's what they allow. So we made a handout for how to evaluate a Wikipedia page, and then we recorded the presentation for anyone that couldn't make it live. Teaching with visual literacy. So in addition to these workshops, we had a visual literacy programming series for students. And so we started with an introduction to visual literacy, and we moved through a variety of visual literacy activities. And then the final thing that we did for that was in April, we had a art show so that faculty and students can show off their artwork. And so the thing that we started with was an introduction to visual literacy, which was actually originally intended for students. And then we were going to do a faculty one where we do teaching with visual literacy. Let me just tell you that introduction to visual literacy for students was a total failure. Trying to get the students to come to that was really hard. So about 2 days beforehand, I opened up the workshop to faculty and staff, and they actually did attend. And so that was the biggest surprise, is that it was intended for students, but that it was actually more attended by faculty and staff. But those who came to the teaching with visual literacy said, "Oh, I missed the first one, and I really wanted to attend live." And I thought, "Oh, okay, that's really interesting." That to me suggested maybe instead of having more workshops, like 8 or 9 different kinds of workshops, maybe instead having, let's say, 4 workshops, but those 4 workshops are hosted at multiple times. So you might have like the Wikipedia in the classroom. Instead of hosting that one time, we might do it 3 times, so that any faculty member that couldn't come to the first one could try to catch the second session. And so that live experience is there, but there's multiple options for choosing to attend. And then copyright and fair use in the digital age. Copyright and fair use is a persistent issue, and that's something that faculty and staff always want to know about. And I can answer some basic questions about copyright, but mostly I have to do a lot of research and give people a lot of resources. And I think in some ways faculty might be served better by connecting them with other libraries who are also doing copyright and fair use. So instead of just saying, well, this library has to deliver all the content all the time, every single time we do a workshop, saying, you know what, we found these copyright materials you might be interested in. Here is an upcoming webinar that you might be interested in about copyright. I did not try that this year, but I am thinking in the future it might be something that they would be interested in, getting them subscribed to some listservs or some other resources where they, if they couldn't come to something that we were doing about copyright. They could attend another copyright session that might be at a more convenient time for them. So it's trying to create an experience that is basically reflective of what the faculty want and what works for them. So trying to deliver an equitable experience for all of them, no matter what site they're at. And then making the collection work for you. So the big thing that I really wanted faculty to know is that we had lots of resources for them. And not that faculty don't use the resources, but it can be very overwhelming. So it's like, where do I actually start? And so what we did was we had multiple small sessions. They're about 30 minutes each. And I think there were 2 of each one. And so the goal of these sessions was to make the collection development policy transparent, why we are doing what we're doing. And I asked my former supervisor, did faculty know why we collected what we collected? And she said that she was not sure. So we said, okay, that would be the first thing to clarify is faculty have things that they want, but they need to know why we are collecting what we're collecting. And they need to be able to ask questions about it. And if they have concerns, that we need to know about them. Because as we review, we want to have this dialogue where they feel like the collection development policy is not only reflective of what we know best practices are and what our community is, but also where they think their fields might be going. It might be helpful for us to know as we think about collection development. To display our collection, hey, this is what we have currently. This is what we just purchased. Isn't it great? And then that helps faculty to also know what they can request. So we sometimes will have faculty say, I really want this thing. And sometimes it has actually happened quite a bit where we will actually have the item. They'll say, man, I really wish you had this. And it will be like, oh, like this is the exact thing that you want. And it's very rewarding. But sometimes we don't have the thing that they want, but we can find something similar and then also record, oh, that's what they wanted. Let's see if we can get a hold of that at some point soon. And then highlighting any hidden treasures. So I did one of these sessions, making the collection work for you, for humanities and social sciences. And one of the history instructors showed up and said, oh my goodness, so you can basically help me choose materials for my classes. And I'm like, if that's what you want me to do, then yes, I can uncover some things that you might be interested in. And he said, yes, I want you to do that. And so for History 111 and 112, they actually were doing a course overhaul. And so he said, I would like you to help me find materials on these topics. And he sent me a whole file of like 7 pages of things that he wanted to cover. And so it's very exciting because there's so much to look up. It's like a scavenger hunt. So I was like digging all around, and then I put it into a LibGuide and I shared it with him. He's like, oh, I had no idea that we had all these resources. So first, it highlights what we have that might be lost in all of the information. It was very exciting. And then he said, hey, would you be interested in doing a second one for History 131 and 132? And I was like, yes, of course I would. And so now that is currently a project that I am working on. So I will say, it is a lot to do if you're on a crunch. So the History 131 is not quite as time, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't have quite as strong a deadline. And so there's a little bit more flexibility there. But that History 111 one needed to be done pretty much by May. And so I think the project lasted from like March to May. And so I was like collecting those resources over time. And so it was a great opportunity to sort of say, look what we can offer you. But that was an instructor I had never met before. We don't work on the same campus. And now we have this sort of like open dialogue about like, can you provide this for me? Do you have this? Yes, let's see what we can find for you. So that wouldn't have happened without having this understanding of these workshops being centered around, faculty making a bid and then turning towards that bid. So some things just to reflect on. Community building takes time. I will admit that I can be a little impatient. And I will say that it is challenging because, like, I don't think anybody likes to deal with rejection. So when it's like, no, I can't come to that, it's like sometimes hard not to take it personally and be like, oh, what did I do wrong? Why don't they like me? But knowing that it actually doesn't have anything to do with me, it's just that faculty are busy. And that those relationships do take time, but as they grow, they can be more positive, and can be one of mutual exchange. I met with instructors that I don't often see or have never interacted with, and that allowed me to really be a better outreach librarian. Obviously, it helps with instruction, but it also helped me to be more effective in knowing who contacts are on the other campuses and sites, and then effectively saying, hey, would you mind disseminating this information for me? Because I think you'll have the right connections to get that information out there. Multiple sessions of the same content often benefit faculty's time constraints. That's something I think we're going to take into the fall to see if it will work effectively. And I think it will. I actually think that will be a positive change that we can make in how we deliver content. And then best outreach strategy, a good memory for the non-academic details. So like when people are like, hey, I really like this book, it's like, okay, let's tuck that away, because that little, exchange of information, and the, kind of dialoguing with them about the small talk kind of stuff is what makes it easier to go to their classroom and say, hey, can you please come and do this thing with me? Or can you come to this program? Or can you watch this? And there's more of that. Yes, because there's that relationship there. So these are our upcoming ideas for fall workshops. Beyond the Academic Journal is definitely something that they have mentioned in the past as being interested in. So we're going to bring that out there. Critical information literacy, to make sure that we're committed to some DEI activities and principles, but helping the faculty know how to do that too when it comes to selecting library resources. Ecology and nature literacy in the classroom. I'm not really sure what that looks like. I literally don't have any idea, but it might be fun. And then a fun one. And so remember that introduction to visual literacy that I mentioned at the beginning that faculty really love, but students really were not super interested in? One of the things that faculty kept saying was, oh, this is so much fun. I love this. This is so exciting. This is so different than what we normally do. And I thought, okay, that's very informative. And I kept thinking about the idea of play, that it was something where faculty can just come and play, and it can be a novel kind of experience. And so I'm still thinking about what that can look like, but just offering a faculty workshop that does not require any sort of intellectual academic experience. It's just come experience what it is like to have some fun every once in a while. And so that is what it looks like for the upcoming fall 2022. And I think that these will help to make the students' experience better, but also when they invite the library in, I think there can be a positive interaction about how we can help them and the services that we can deliver as librarians. And that's it. I know I talked really fast. I apologize for that, but
please feel free to put your questions and your comments in the chat.
Thank you. Yes, so they do. I will say that right now we're in the hiring process of librarians. So it's me and another librarian, and so we're kind of limited on how many librarians can do certain things, how often. But I think once we get more people on staff, it's going to be great. We're going to have so many librarians doing so many different things. My favorite outreach program that I've done thus far with the faculty has to be the Wikipedia in the classroom, because I got to make a handout about how to evaluate a Wikipedia page. And one of the great things about it was that they were like, oh my goodness, I didn't know you can evaluate a Wikipedia page with like the good article button. It's the green little button at the top that lets you know what a good article is. And that was a lot of fun. So Yes, I would be willing to share it. Let me see if I can find it. I'll stick around and see if I can find it and share it. Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, me too. And that's one of the things, the Wikipedia presentation actually generated a lot of conversation about multimedia sources. So it allowed us, I think, to start a conversation about what does it mean to find research outside of the traditional academic journal article. And so I really, I like the way that it started a conversation that I think we're going to continue into the fall. Yes. Here's my email address. I will say that the way I put things together most of the time is like wrong at first and then fixing it and fixing all the problems. So I try a lot of different things, try tinkering with things. And so it can be a little challenging at first. A lot of these were kind of set up in funky ways, and then I had to go back and fix it. Of course, that's, I guess, part of being first-year librarian. You're like kind of trying to figure everything out. I don't. And so I don't try to overcome any of their resistance. I'm like, I appreciate that this is what you're concerned about. And so basically putting the ball in their court to sort of say, you know what, I respect that you don't want to use Wikipedia in your classroom, and that's okay. Here's what happens if you change your mind. Here's this resource you can use. And so I'll say from my perspective as a former instructor, is I didn't like to be told what to do. And so respecting their expertise and then sort of like inviting them, I think creates a better opportunity for them to see, oh, this is not so bad. This is really not too negative. And I just posted that Wikipedia article if you have any trouble. Oh, yes, you're welcome. We do collaborate with other departments. Let's see. That's mostly with student workshops, but I'm hoping to do more faculty collaboration and other in the future. I will say with the introduction to visual literacy that we did, I collaborated with the North Carolina Museum of Art, and they were really great. They came in, they did the visual literacy instruction with us. How do you assess your sessions? Yes, I do assess them, but I do not use quantitative data because I don't think that the number of people that attend is reflective of the impact that we have on faculty. So I do qualitative assessment. What do they say? How many people are, how often are we discussing these kinds of things? And are they asking us for something more? Does it inspire more people to have conversations with us? So for example, that making the collection work for you, we had that history instructor ask us to put together another guide for him. That would count as success for that program. I can see the point of numbers, but I don't know that it's super effective in this particular case. Do you have more outreach to any particular departments on campus or better interaction? So I will say that the librarians are embedded in sociology, psychology, or sociology 210, psychology 150, and English 111 and 112. So we work very closely with the English department. And that, I think, is very, very useful. I think they're a little bit more involved with us and a little bit more receptive to the things that we're trying. I haven't really gotten any resistance. I think everyone is really super nice. I think the big thing that I have to work on is finding something that fits for the faculty and helping them to see like, oh, this is that thing that I've been looking for. And so as I spend more time here, I hope that I learn more about what each department kind of is hoping for and what they need. And then we can kind of sort of say, okay, this is what we want to do to help you and support you as you do your wonderful instruction for your students. Where do your ideas for your sessions come from? So it depends. Like copyright is always something that faculty are interested in. And it's always changing. So try to do that based on faculty interest and things that they suggest. Most of the time, the ideas come from, I'll get a question from a faculty member like, hey, do you have this? Or, can you get this for us? And I'll say, well, that's a little strange. Don't they know about such and such? Don't they know about this or that? And I'll investigate a little bit, and it turns out that they don't. And so it's like, I wouldn't say that I'm coming up with any new ideas. I think I'm trying to just open up the channels that have already been there and just sort of say, hey, wouldn't it be great if we talk to each other? It would be so fun. And then we would get to know more about what we each offer to one another. And again, it comes back to that idea of bids. We're talking, we're sharing bids, we're turning towards each other, and we're benefiting from that mutual understanding. Yes, all the sessions that we delivered were over Zoom. So all the lunch and learn sessions were over Zoom, and then the making the collection development work for you was also over Zoom as well. We decided that because there were multiple sites, that virtual programs were a little bit more effective, and also because we were still in the middle of the pandemic when we started all this, we felt like perhaps it would be best to just ensure that for everybody's safety and wellness that we put them on Zoom. But I think in the end, Zoom is actually the way I hope that we'll go in the future, because more faculty can attend. So like if I had a session at the Lee campus, I can certainly have one here at the Harnett campus, but then that sort of keeps those two parties separately, or keeps them separate, whereas like it might be more beneficial to have all the faculty from the multiple campuses come together in this one space to see kind of what other people in other departments are doing, what people in their departments are doing. Oh, yes, you are welcome. Feel free to use that. Just spread it all around if you would like. Download it, change it, whatever you feel like you need to do with it, you are welcome to do.
Oh, another question.
Do you have any articles, resources you would recommend for outreach to faculty? I don't. I will admit that I'm not as well versed in like sort of the literature of outreach. Mostly what I think the best kind of approach is to talk to faculty. What do they want? What do they feel like they need? What do they wish they saw more of? And then deliver that content. I think that's the sort of challenging part about the literature is great, but every community is so different. So what is it that your faculty want, and then giving them that thing that they want.
Any other questions for Morgan?
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it.
All righty, everybody. So our final session of the day is just a reflection. I'm going to post a link to the final session that will start at 5. And that's just a reflection on how the day has gone. Sorry, 5 Eastern, 4 Central. And just a time for us to chat before adjourning for the day. So don't forget, this session was recorded and will be available on the website after the conference. We appreciate your attendance today. It's been a wonderful day. of learning about what our colleagues are doing in instruction. We will send you a survey following the conference, so please fill that out. And again, we'll see you at the final session at 5 Eastern, 4 Central.